Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. Brielle Johnson came home to their townhouse in Charlotte, North Carolina, and asked her husband Darius Reed to grab the car keys because the trash bin blocked the driveway. She balanced her purse on her shoulder, opened the door with one hand, and spoke like she wanted the routine finished fast. Darius answered calmly and stepped from the kitchen toward the living room. She set her purse on the couch without looking back. He reached for it the way he always did, not as suspicion, just habit. Then his fingers found something folded that did not feel like keys. He noticed the detail. Darius walked to the couch, opened Brielle's purse to find the keys, and felt a folded receipt tucked beside her wallet and perfume. He did not pull it out dramatically. He slid it free with 2 fingers and kept his face still. The paper was creased neatly, like it had been folded on purpose and placed carefully, not crumpled or forgotten. Darius unfolded it slowly as if speed could turn it into something else. He stayed quiet, listening for Brielle's footsteps upstairs, but the hallway stayed still. He read what was printed and felt his stomach tighten without moving his expression. He kept his tone steady. The receipt was from Hillside Bar and Grill across town, dated the night before at the same time Brielle said she was working late at her office. The header was bold. The totals were clear. Darius traced the lines with his eyes as if the order of items could change the meaning. It did not. The timestamp sat there like a witness. He thought about the way Brielle had said, "It will be late," and the way she had sounded certain. He remembered her message, the one that made it seem normal. Now the paper made it sound different. Nothing felt casual. Everything felt measured. He wanted clarity. Darius read the charges for 2 entries and a bottle of wine, then refolded the paper exactly and put it back without letting Brielle see his face change. Brielle always said she avoided wine during the week because she wanted to stay sharp. He remembered hearing that line more than once. He and Brielle had never gone to that restaurant together, not once in years. The receipt listed dinner for 2, not a quick drink, not a work snack. Darius pressed the fold flat with his thumb, slid it into the pocket, and closed the zipper. He picked up the keys like nothing happened. He chose silence. He rolled the trash bin back to its spot, pulled her car into the driveway, and returned inside with his thoughts locked on that single piece of paper. The bin scraped the concrete. The car engine cooled with soft clicks. These were ordinary sounds, but they did not feel ordinary anymore. Darius moved carefully, like any careless gesture could spill what he now knew into the open. He parked straight, turned off the ignition, and stood for a second with his hand on the steering wheel. He looked at the front door and felt the house was the same shape but different inside. He kept breathing. The doubt grew. Upstairs, Brielle turned on the shower, and Darius opened the refrigerator, stayed at the shelves, and closed it again without taking anything. The cold light washed over leftovers and bottles of water. Nothing unusual, nothing missing. He stood there longer than he meant to, as if a normal action could reset his mind. The shower ran steady, the same sound it always made, but now it sounded like distance. Darius shut the refrigerator and leaned against the counter. He did not speak. He did not call her name. He listened, not to the water, but to what was not being said in their home. The silence held. He stored it away. Brielle came down in old sweats, asked to watch the usual show, and laughed at her phone while Darius tried to talk about a problem at work. Her hair was wet. Her voice sounded light, even friendly, and she sat on the couch like nothing was wrong. Darius sat beside her, looked at the screen, and tried to hold the rhythm of their normal evening. He mentioned a client issue and waited for her to engage. Brielle gave a quick response, short and smooth, and returned to her phone with a grin that felt aimed somewhere else. Darius kept his posture relaxed, but his mind stayed on the receipt. He kept observing. Her answers sounded short and practiced, and when she said she was tired and went to bed, Darius stayed downstairs listening to the wall clock. Brielle did not ask him to come up with her. She did not linger. She stood, said good night, and left the room as if it was a task to complete. Darius watched her disappear up the stairs and felt the space widen behind her. He sat in the living room without turning on anything else. The clock ticked, consistent and loud. He looked at the couch cushion where her purse had been and pictured that folded receipt inside it like a secret she forgot to hide. He stayed calm outside. The pattern repeated. In bed, Brielle scrolled in the dark with the phone angled away, and Darius faced the wall, replaying the receipt in her steady tone. The glow from her screen cut a thin line across the room. Brielle's thumb moved fast, then stopped, then moved again, and Darius noticed the pauses. He did not roll over. He did not ask who she was talking to. He stayed at the wall and let his mind build a timeline he did not want. Her meeting, the restaurant, the wine, the dinner for two. He heard her breathe beside him, normal and calm, and that calm made the gap feel larger. He did not sleep much. He wanted facts. Over the next few days, Darius watched details he used to ignore, like new makeup, a sweeter perfume, and outfits that looked chosen for someone else. The changes were not loud, but they were consistent. Brielle's morning routine stretched longer. She checked herself in the mirror more times before leaving. She adjusted her hair and the collar of her blouse like she was preparing for attention. Darius noticed the perfume on her neck, not the familiar scent he associated with their home, but something sharper and more polished. He said nothing about it. He spoke normally about errands and plans and deadlines, but he listened for what did not match. Each new detail sat beside the receipt in his mind. Everything felt measured. He kept counting days. Brielle started taking longer to get ready on Wednesday mornings and began saying she had late meetings more often than before. The excuses came with confidence, like she had prepared them early. She mentioned traffic, shifting schedules, and last-minute requests from supervisors. She said the office needed her. Darius nodded and did not argue. He watched her leave, watched her car turn the corner, and watched the street return to quiet. He noticed how she did not check in like she used to. There were fewer casual texts, fewer simple updates. When she came home late, she moved quickly through the kitchen, smiled quickly, and ended conversations with, "I am exhausted." Darius listened to the cadence of her words, the smoothness of it, and he stored it away. He chose patience. When texts came in, she smiled at the screen, then flipped the phone face down when Darius walked into the room. It happened the same way each time. The light from the screen would brighten her face, her mouth would curve into a private smile, and then she would shift the phone to the table, face down, like a reflex. Darius would pretend he did not see it. He would ask simple questions about dinner or errands, and she would answer quickly without lifting the phone again until he stepped away. Once, he stopped beside her a moment longer, and her shoulders tensed. The tension told him more than any words. He did not accuse. He did not raise his voice. He kept observing. He wanted proof, not guesses. The truth felt close. She said she needed space and wanted to skip long conversations during the week because she felt stressed, but her explanation sounded rehearsed. She delivered it in one smooth flow, like a speech. She said she had too much on her plate and needed quiet evenings. She said talking about feelings felt like pressure. She suggested they do their own thing for a while. Darius nodded, listened, and did not challenge her logic. The words were reasonable on paper, but the timing felt strategic. It arrived right when his questions might have started. It arrived right when the receipt sat like a stone in his mind. Darius agreed, because agreement kept the room calm and kept her careless. He watched the way she relaxed after he accepted it, like she had avoided a problem. He stored it away. One morning, she rushed out claiming an off-site meeting, and once the gate clicked shut, Darius opened her drawer and checked her planner. The planner was where Brielle kept everything: deadlines, lunches, calls, small notes in tight handwriting. Darius flipped to that date expecting to see a full page. Instead, there was a single red slash, nothing else. No address, no times, no contact name. It looked like a deliberate emptiness. He stayed at it longer than he meant to, then closed the planner and slid it back into place exactly. The smell of her new perfume lingered in the room. Darius stood still and felt his suspicion sharpen into something more focused. He did not tell himself stories. He held on to what he had seen. He needed answers. The page had only a single red slash, no notes, no times, and Darius knew she never left a workday blank like that. It was not a mistake. Brielle was too organized for that. The red slash looked like a mark meant to cover something, not record it. Darius thought about all the times she had told him her schedule was packed. He thought about the way she always complained about meetings that never ended. Now the planner offered nothing but a line. He placed the planner back as carefully as evidence. He did not take a photo. He did not confront her that evening. He wanted her to keep believing he was still the same man who did not notice. He waited for more. He chose silence. That afternoon, Brielle came home cheerful with takeout and told a story about a co-worker, calling the person he before correcting to she too quickly. The correction was fast, like she caught herself mid-step. Darius watched her mouth, watched her eyes, and noticed the brief flicker of fear before she smiled again. She set the takeout on the table, talked too much, and laughed at her own story like she needed the sound to fill space. Darius ate, nodded, and asked one neutral question. Brielle answered and shifted topics immediately. It was not a conversation. It was a performance meant to keep him satisfied. Darius did not react. He took in the details like a report. He stored it away. He kept his tone steady. Weekends shifted as she refused grocery trips, movie nights, and visits to Darius's parents in Raleigh, saying she needed sleep or had reports to finish. The refusals stacked up until the pattern was clear. Brielle used to like those small routines. Now she treated them like burdens. She stayed in the bedroom with the door partly open, laptop on, headphones in, smiling at the screen. When Darius asked what she was watching, she hesitated, then said a vague name that did not sound real. He did not press. He walked back to the kitchen and washed dishes that were already clean. He watched the clock. He watched her come out only for water, then return to the room like she was escaping. Darius felt like a visitor in his own house. He kept counting days. She stayed in the bedroom with headphones and a laptop, smiling. And when Darius asked what she was watching, she hesitated and changed the subject. Her hesitation was small, but Darius saw it. She said she was just catching up, and then asked him something unrelated, something meant to redirect. Darius accepted the redirect and let her believe it worked. He spent that evening on the couch and listened to the faint sound of voices through the wall. It did not matter what show it was. It mattered that she was guarding it. When she came out, she gave him a quick hug and returned to the bedroom before he could say anything meaningful. Darius felt the hug as a checkmark, not affection. He did not follow her. He stayed quiet. He kept observing. Darius slept lightly, listening for footsteps and the click of her phone, and each quick hug felt like a formality instead of comfort. He woke at small sounds, a floorboard, a drawer, the soft tap of the screen. He kept his eyes closed sometimes so she would not know he was awake. He noticed how she carried the phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. He noticed how she kept it face down on the nightstand, then picked it up quickly when notifications came through. Once, she stepped into the hallway to answer a call and lowered her voice. Darius did not get up. He listened to the silence after she ended the call and returned with a smile that came too late. He felt the shift again, like the house had become a stage. He needed answers. He refused to guess. While Brielle showered one day, Darius opened her purse and found a bright lipstick and long earrings that he never saw her wear at home. The lipstick was a bold color, the kind that demanded attention. The earrings were sleek and unfamiliar, not the simple pairs she wore around the family. Darius held them briefly in his palm, then placed them back where they belonged. He did not take them as trophies. He took them as confirmation that she had a version of herself he did not know. He sat on the edge of the couch and looked out the window at a quiet street. Nothing outside looked different. Inside, everything was different. When Brielle came out smiling, Darius smiled back, careful and controlled. His decision felt firm. He would stop asking and start verifying. He made a plan. He held them for a moment, put them back, and decided to stop asking questions and start collecting certainty. Asking had become useless because Brielle's answers were ready before he spoke. Certainty meant proof, something she could not twist. Darius returned the purse to the exact spot and smoothed the couch cushion, erasing his own movement. He cleaned the kitchen, checked the mail, and acted like the day was normal. Brielle chatted lightly later, mentioned a meeting, and laughed at a message. Darius nodded and responded the way he always had. He felt himself becoming quieter, not from fear, but from focus. He was not planning revenge. He was planning clarity. That was the only thing he needed. He kept observing. He wanted facts. That night, he lay awake until his eyes burned, turning over small lies and small changes until they formed one clear pattern. He replayed the receipt again and again, the printed time, the total, the wine. He thought about the blank planner page and the sudden need for space. He thought about the lipstick and earrings. He thought about the way she flipped her phone down like it burned. Darius felt the pieces align even without a confession. He was not a dramatic man. He did not want a scene. He wanted to be sure before he changed his life. As the hours passed, his hope thinned. The pattern did not break. It repeated. It tightened. By morning, he was not searching for reassurance anymore. He was preparing for the truth. He did not sleep much. He needed answers. In the morning, he watched Betrayal brush her teeth and saw her avoid his eyes in the mirror as she rushed through her routine. She moved fast, like time near him was an inconvenience. She rinsed, wiped her mouth, and reached for her phone before she reached for a towel. Darius leaned in the doorway and watched without speaking. Betrayal glanced at the mirror and then away, like eye contact was at risk. She spoke about traffic, deadlines, and monthly goals, listing reasons she had to leave quickly. Darius listened and said, "Okay," in a neutral voice. Betrayal grabbed her bag and moved toward the door. She did not kiss him on the lips, only his cheek, quick and light. Then she left. Darius stood in the quiet and let the decision become final. He needed proof. He made a plan. After she left again with another list of work reasons, Darius called his cousin Terrence Brooks in Baltimore, who worked in private security and investigations. Terrence answered on the second ring and sounded tired, like he had already been awake too long. Darius did not waste time. He described the receipt, the changes, the phone habits, the blank planner page, and the way Betrayal's stories did not match her patterns. Terrence listened without interrupting. Darius could hear Terrence's breathing, steady and heavy, on the line. When Darius finished, he asked one simple question. "Can you check?" Terrence did not hesitate. He said, "Give me a week." Darius thanked him and ended the call. Hanging up felt like stepping onto a path he could not reverse. He kept his tone steady. Darius told Terrence about the receipt, the changes, and the secrecy, and Terrence listened quietly before saying he would need 1 week. Darius accepted the timeline without bargaining. A week meant waiting, and Darius had already been waiting in his own home for days. He did not tell Betrayal what he had done. He did not hint. He did not stay or sulk. He kept conversation short and polite. He cooked dinner one night and asked her about work in a casual voice. Betrayal answered with rehearsed lines and returned to her phone. Darius smiled, washed dishes, and took out the trash. He moved through his life like a man who still belonged there, but inside, he felt like he had stepped back to observe. The house stayed quiet. The doubt grew. He waited for proof. For 7 days, Darius lived like a guest in his own house, washing dishes, taking out the trash, and speaking as if nothing had shifted. He woke, went to work, came home, and kept routine steady. Betrayal seemed calmer, as if a plan was working. She spoke lightly about random things and avoided anything deeper. Darius played his role. When she mentioned stress, he nodded. When she laughed at her phone, he pretended not to notice. At night, he lay still and listened to the faint sounds of her screen and her breathing. He measured time in small moments. How long she stayed in the bathroom, how quickly she turned her phone away, how often she left the room to answer calls. Each moment was another line in a silent report. Darius did not guess. He waited. He chose patience. Betrayal tried to act normal, but she tensed when Darius appeared unexpectedly, and she kept her phone close, screen hidden. The tension was subtle, a stiffening of shoulders, a quick shift of the phone under her palm. Darius noticed every instance. He would walk into the kitchen, and she would close an app too fast. He would sit beside her, and she would angle the screen away. Once, he asked to borrow her charger, and she handed it over with a smile that ended immediately after he turned. Nothing was loud, but the cumulative effect was heavy. It was like living with someone who was always guarding a door you could not see. Darius kept his own movements normal, because normality kept her from tightening her cover. He wanted her to remain careless. He wanted facts. He kept observing. Darius woke from restless dreams and still hoped for misunderstanding, even as the evidence in his mind kept stacking up. Hope did not mean denial. It meant he wanted reality to be kinder than it looked. He remembered who Betrayal used to be with him, the years of shared routines and quiet jokes. He wondered if the receipt could be explained, if the wine could have been for someone else, if the dinner could have been a work obligation. Then he remembered the lipstick, the earrings, the planner slash, and the phone turned down like a reflex. The pattern did not match innocence. It matched secrecy. Darius stopped trying to soften it. He stopped asking the universe for an alternate version. He focused on the week Terrence had requested. He waited for confirmation. He refused to guess. The truth felt close. On Friday, Betrayal said she was going out with co-workers for a manager's birthday and wore a black dress Darius had never seen before. The dress fit like it had been chosen carefully. She paired it with heels and a delicate necklace he did not recognize. Darius watched from the hallway as she adjusted the necklace, checked her hair, and smiled at herself in the mirror. She looked confident, prepared, and excited in a way that did not include him. Betrayal walked downstairs, kissed him quickly, and said she would be home late. Darius nodded and wished her a good time in a calm voice. He did not ask which co-workers. He did not ask which restaurant. He watched her leave without hesitation, and he listened until the car was gone. The silence that followed felt like a message. He kept breathing. He wanted proof. She left with a quick kiss, and Darius stood at the door listening to her car fade until the street went quiet again. He did not turn on the television. He did not call friends. He sat in the living room and watched the clock move. Each minute felt heavier because it was filled with questions he refused to speak. He thought about Betrayal in the black dress, about the kind of place she would choose, and about who would see her. He did not picture it in detail. He only noted the fact that she had not worn that dress for him. Around midnight, he heard nothing from her, no update, no text. In the past, she would have sent something small. Now she did not. That absence said enough. Darius went to bed alone and slept lightly. The clock kept ticking. The doubt grew. On Saturday morning, Betrayal put on workout clothes, kissed his cheek, and left for the gym with earbuds in and new white sneakers. She spoke about needing to reset and promised she would pick up groceries later. Darius nodded, kept his eyes calm, and watched her move quickly through the doorway like she had somewhere more important to be. The earbuds were in before she reached the gate. The gate clicked shut, and the quiet returned. Darius stood in the living room and waited, not with impatience, but with readiness. He kept his phone near, expecting Terrence's message. When it arrived minutes later, it felt like the next page turning. Darius did not celebrate. He did not panic. He simply replied yes and prepared for what he already believed was coming. He wanted facts. He wanted clarity. He kept observing. Minutes later, Terrence texted that he could stop by, and Darius told him to come to the house while Betrayal was gone. Darius checked the street, then unlocked the gate and waited on the porch. He felt his pulse in his throat, but his face stayed calm. Terrence arrived in a plain car and parked without drawing attention. He stepped out with a serious expression and a simple envelope in his hand. He did not greet Darius with jokes. He walked straight through the gate and handed the envelope over like he was handing over a report. Darius did not open it outside. He thanked Terrence quietly and led him into the living room. Terrence did not sit. He only said, "It is what you suspected," and then he waited while Darius opened it. Darius exhaled once and broke the seal. The moment passed slowly. Terrence arrived with a plain envelope, serious eyes, and no small talk, then handed it to Darius as if it were a weight. The envelope felt heavier than paper should feel. Darius held it with two hands and sat on the couch. Terrence stood near the doorway, giving him space but staying close. Darius opened the flap carefully and slid out a stack of photographs. He looked at the first one and felt the room tilt, not physically, but internally, like his body recognized truth before his mind formed sentences. Terrence did not speak. Darius did not ask questions. The photos were the answers. The images were clear and ordinary, which made them wise. There was no blur, no confusion, no doubt. Darius stared and took it in. He did not cry. He did not shout. He kept breathing. He wanted facts. Now he had them. Inside were photos of Betrayal in her black dress entering a hotel at Baltimore's Inner Harbor with a tall man in a tailored coat. They were close enough to look like a couple. Betrayal's face was turned toward him, smiling in a way Darius had not seen in months. The man's hand hovered near her waist. The second photo showed their hands linked clearly. The third showed them hugging at the entrance. Not a work greeting, not a polite gesture. The last photo showed them walking toward the reception desk, shoulders nearly touching. Darius stared at each one until the details stopped feeling like interpretation and became plain fact. The affair was not a suspicion anymore. It was documented. Terrence watched Darius's face and waited. Darius did not speak. He simply nodded once, as if acknowledging a verdict. The silence held. Another photo showed her holding his hand. Another showed them hugging near the entrance, and the last showed them walking to the reception desk together. Darius felt heat rise behind his eyes, but he did not blink it into tears. He set the photos on the coffee table and lined them up straight, as if order could control the chaos. Terrence asked if he wanted more details, names, dates, and Darius shook his head. He did not need a biography. He needed confirmation, and he had it. He looked around the living room, at the couch, at the hallway leading upstairs, and felt detached, like he was seeing his own home from outside. He stood, thanked Terrence again, and told him he would handle the rest. Terrence nodded, gave him a brief handshake, and left without lingering. Darius listened to the gate click. He listened to his own breathing. Then he moved. He made a plan. Darius stared until suspicion turned into fact, then walked upstairs, pulled out a small suitcase, and began packing only what he needed. He did not pack with anger. He packed with precision. He opened drawers quietly and chose documents first: passport, important papers, a folder of banking information. He grabbed a charger, a toothbrush, a few shirts, and one sweater Betrayal had bought him years earlier that he had always liked. The sweater felt strange in his hands now, like it belonged to a different version of him. He did not take furniture. He did not take souvenirs. He took only what he could carry without debate. Downstairs, the house was silent except for his footsteps. He paused at the top of the stairs and looked toward the bedroom door, then kept moving. His hands were steady. His decision was final. He gathered documents, a charger, toiletries, and a sweater Betrayal had bought years earlier, then returned downstairs with the photos in his hand. He moved through the kitchen and living room without turning on lights he did not need. He placed the suitcase near the door and picked up the photos again. He did not write a letter. He did not feel a need to explain what the pictures already proved. He laid the photos on the coffee table in a straight line, fully visible, like a silent statement. There was no dramatic message. There was only evidence and absence. Darius stood for a moment and looked at the stairs, imagining Betrayal coming home and seeing them. He did not picture the conversation that might follow because he had already chosen not to have it. He took the suitcase handle and walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft click. The moment passed slowly. He chose silence. He laid the photos on the coffee table in a straight line, left no note, and walked out through the gate without calling her name. The sun was bright, the street ordinary. Neighbors' houses sat quietly like they always did. Darius stepped through the gate and crossed the sidewalk. He felt pain, but he also felt a strange control returning, the kind that comes when a decision is made and carried out. He loaded the suitcase into his car and sat behind the wheel for a moment without starting the engine. He looked at the front door of the townhouse and did not feel longing. He felt relief that he did not have to pretend anymore. Then he started the car and drove away. He did not look back. He did not chase her. He did not argue. He kept breathing. He wanted clarity. He wanted facts. With his suitcase, he crossed the street and drove to his sister's apartment in Richmond, Virginia, choosing distance over confrontation. His sister opened the door with concern in her eyes, and Darius told her only that he needed a place to stay. He did not list details. He did not show the photos. He set the suitcase down and sat on her couch like someone who had just finished running a long distance. His phone buzzed once, then again. He looked at the screen, saw Betrayal's name, and set the phone face down. He did not answer. He did not want denial, excuses, or anger. He wanted space to process what had already been proven. That night, he slept for a few hours, waking once in the dark, reminding himself he had not imagined anything. The proof existed. The silence held. Brielle came home later to a quiet house, called for Darius, and found the open envelope and photos waiting on the table. She stopped when she saw them. She did not move the pictures at first. She stared like she was reading a document she could not dispute. The room was still. Outside, the neighborhood continued normally. Inside, the moment was fixed. She sank onto the couch and pressed her hands together. Her face tightened, then softened, then tightened again. She reached for her phone and stared at it without dialing immediately, as if she knew any call would not undo what she had left behind. When she finally called, Darius did not answer. She called again. No answer. She sat back and looked at the photos again. The evidence did not change. The silence held. She sat down, hands trembling, and stared at what she could not explain away, because the images spoke in plain facts. The hotel entrance, the hand-holding, the hug, the reception desk. None of it looked like work. None of it looked like a misunderstanding. Brielle's breathing was shallow. She wiped at her face once and left her hand there, as if holding herself together. She did not say Darius's name out loud. She did not speak at all. She stood after a long time and walked upstairs, then returned and sat again, unable to settle. The house did not comfort her. The house only reflected what she had broken. By the time the sky darkened, her phone showed missed calls with no replies. She realized he had already left the conversation behind. That realization landed slowly. The moment passed slowly. In the days that followed, Brielle sent texts that shifted from questions to anger to apology, and Darius answered only once with a request for space. He wrote a short message. He knew he was done, and he needed distance. He did not argue in text. He did not debate details. After that, he stopped replying. Brielle's messages continued anyway, paragraphs of explanation that did not explain, accusations that did not fit, promises that felt late. Darius let them sit unread for hours sometimes. He focused on next steps, not emotional back and forth. He began listing accounts and documents, making sure nothing important stayed in joint control. He told himself that emotional closure would come later, but legal clarity had to come now. He chose dignity over drama. He refused to guess. He wanted facts. He met with an attorney in Richmond, separated accounts, changed passwords, and asked his parents not to contact Brielle. The attorney spoke plainly about options, paperwork, and timelines. Darius provided what he had without making it a spectacle. He moved money into new accounts and set up new logins. He redirected mail. He updated emergency contacts. He told his mother the truth in 2 sentences, and his mother went quiet, then asked if he was sure. Darius said yes. His father said he was proud of him for staying calm. Darius asked them not to call Brielle and not to carry messages. He wanted a clean break, not a network of conversations. He avoided posting anything. He avoided gossip. He treated it like a closed door. The line did not add up, and now he stopped trying to force it. He made a plan. The divorce moved through paperwork and signatures, quiet but final, and Darius refused meetings that felt like rehearsals. Brielle requested to talk in person more than once. Darius declined through the attorney. He did not want to sit across from her and listen to a narrative that shifted with convenience. He did not want to be tempted into arguing details he already knew. The documents moved forward anyway. Dates were set. Forms were filed. The process felt cold, but Darius preferred cold truth to warm lies. When the final papers arrived, he signed them without hesitation. He did not feel triumphant. He felt released from pretending. He returned home to his sister's apartment and stared at the signed page for a moment, then placed it in a folder. It was not revenge. It was closure through action. He chose silence. He chose clarity. He moved into a small apartment downtown, focused on work, kept his routines simple, and rebuilt a life that did not depend on trust he could not verify. He furnished the place with basics, a bed, a table, a chair. He cooked simple meals and went on long walks after work. Friends asked questions and Darius answered briefly. He did not want to become the story. He wanted to move beyond it. Some nights he still woke up thinking he was in the old house, then remembered he was not. Over time, the sharpest pain dulled into a memory he could hold without shaking. He learned that peace could be built one ordinary day at a time. He did not chase explanations. He did not need Betrayal to admit anything. The photos had done that. He kept breathing. The silence held. Years later, on a work trip to Chicago, Darius stopped in a bookstore and met Simone Harris when they reached for the same travel guide. Simone laughed softly and apologized first, then asked where he planned to go next. Darius answered honestly and was surprised at how easy it felt to talk. They discussed cities, food, and what makes a place feel safe. They exchanged numbers without ceremony. The next day, they met for coffee. The conversation did not feel like a performance. Simone asked direct questions and listened to the answers. Darius noticed her calm and her clarity. When he flew back to Richmond, they continued texting, then calling. It stayed steady. It did not feel rushed. Darius did not compare her to Betrayal. He only noted that Simone's words matched her actions. That mattered. He stored it away. Simone smiled first, asked a direct question, and their conversation continued into coffee, then dinners, then steady contact after he returned to Richmond. Simone visited him a month later and walked through his neighborhood without acting impressed or disappointed. She looked at his life as it was and did not demand that he turn it into something else. Over dinner, Darius told her the outline of his past without dramatic detail. Simone did not interrupt. She did not pity him. She asked what he learned from it. Darius said he learned to trust patterns, not promises. Simone nodded and said she agreed. That simple response felt like respect. When she left Richmond, Darius missed her, not as need, but as genuine connection. They kept building, step by step, without pressure. The pattern repeated, but this time it was a pattern of consistency. He kept breathing. Simone visited Richmond, met his family, and saw his calm without asking for a dramatic version of his past, which made Darius trust her pace. His parents liked her directness and the way she treated Darius with quiet care. Simone did not perform for them. She asked his mother about recipes and asked his father about work, then listened. When Darius's sister mentioned the divorce briefly, Simone did not flinch. She simply said she was glad Darius had rebuilt his life. That simple line felt like protection, not curiosity. Over time, Simone and Darius created routines, weekend walks, shared meals, small trips, and long talks that did not end abruptly. Darius noticed he slept better when she was near. He noticed he laughed without forcing it. He did not feel like he had to monitor her phone or her words. He felt steady. He stored it away. He chose patience, and it rewarded him. They married in a small courthouse ceremony in Norfolk, Virginia, choosing clarity over spectacle and keeping the day focused on promises they could keep. There were no grand speeches. There were only close family, a judge, and vows spoken plainly. Darius wore a simple suit. Simone wore a dress that fit her perfectly without trying to impress strangers. Afterward, they ate dinner with family and drove back to Richmond. It felt calm, not like an event they had to recover from, but like a decision they could live inside. Darius realized that this was what he had wanted all along, a partner who did not need secrecy to feel alive. Simone held his hand in the car and said she was grateful for the life they were building. Darius nodded and said he was, too. The moment passed slowly, but it felt right. He kept breathing. Their son Elijah Reed was born a year later, and Darius learned a different kind of peace in late-night feedings and quiet mornings. Simone handled motherhood with steady confidence, and Darius showed up without hesitation. He changed diapers, warmed bottles, and rocked Elijah back to sleep when the baby cried. In those quiet hours, Darius felt his life recalibrate. The past did not disappear, but it lost its control over him. He had something real in his arms, something that needed him. Over time, Elijah's laughter filled their home. Darius looked at his son and saw a future that was not built on suspicion. Simone and Darius made decisions together and followed through. They argued sometimes, but they spoke plainly and resolved things without hidden meanings. Darius noticed how safe that felt. He stored it away. He chose gratitude. Elijah grew into a teenager with Simone's humor and Darius's steady eyes, and their home filled with homework, chores, and ordinary jokes. They attended school events, handled doctor visits, and argued over screen time like any family. Darius found comfort in the normal routines. On weekends, he and Elijah ran errands together. Simone teased them about how they turned simple shopping into long debates about snacks. The house was not perfect, but it was honest. Darius rarely thought about Betrayal, not because he forgot, but because his current life demanded his attention in good ways. When old memories surfaced, they came without panic. They were simply memories. Darius had learned that moving forward did not require erasing the past. It required refusing to live inside it. He kept breathing. The silence held, but now the silence felt peaceful. 15 years after the suitcase, Darius and Simone walked into Elijah's school in Richmond for a parent-teacher meeting carrying a folder of forms. They joked lightly about something Elijah said at breakfast and expected a normal meeting. The receptionist smiled, checked their names, and guided them down a quiet hallway. Darius kept talking until they reached a small conference room. When he stepped inside, his body reacted before his mind caught up. Betrayal was there, standing near the table with papers arranged in neat stacks. She looked older, composed, and tired in a way Darius did not expect. The sight hit him hard but did not knock him down. Simone noticed his pause and looked from him to Betrayal with calm attention. The room held a quiet weight. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Betrayal gestured toward the chairs. The moment passed slowly. The receptionist led them into a conference room, and when Darius stepped inside, he saw Betrayal, older and composed, standing by a table of papers. Betrayal's posture was straight, like she was holding herself together through effort. Her hair was pulled back in a simple style. Her face held lines that had not been there before. She did not smile widely. She offered a polite expression that looked practiced, like a professional mask. Darius did not say her name. He simply sat when she indicated. Simone sat beside him without hesitation. Betrayal began speaking in a calm voice, introducing the meeting as if it were any other day. Darius heard the tone and recognized control. It sounded like someone trying not to let history leak into the room. Simone watched quietly and did not interrupt. Darius kept his face neutral, but his mind registered every detail as fact. Betrayal was here, and time had not erased what happened. It had only carried it forward. He kept breathing. Betrayal did not say his name, but she gestured for them to sit and began the meeting in a professional tone that sounded practiced and controlled. She opened a folder, pointed to a sheet, and spoke about Elijah's performance. Her words were organized, steady, and appropriate. She praised Elijah's reading level and his writing. She noted that he helped classmates and turned in assignments on time. The meeting sounded normal, but the pauses between sentences felt heavier than normal. Betrayal's eyes lifted from the paper more than once and landed on Darius. Each time, she caught herself and returned to the page, like looking at him was dangerous. Darius listened and nodded at the right moments. Simone asked one practical question about a project, and Betrayal answered quickly, grateful for the structure. Nobody addressed the past directly, yet it was present in the silence. The moment passed slowly. She praised Elijah's reading and writing, noted his responsibility, and followed the checklist, yet her eyes lifted to Darius more than once. Darius met her gaze when it happened, not with anger, not with warmth, but with plain acknowledgement. Betrayal's face tightened for a fraction of a second, then returned to professional calm. Simone noticed and stayed steady. She did not lean away. She did not press for explanations in the room. She listened like a partner who understood timing. Betrayal continued the meeting, turning pages and pointing to notes. Her hands moved with care, as if keeping paper straight could keep her emotions straight. Darius did not offer small talk. He did not ask how she had been. He did not ask why. The meeting was about Elijah, and he kept it that way. The truth had already been proven years ago. There was nothing to debate now. There was only the collision of past and present. The moment passed slowly. The silence held. Each time their eyes met, a brief pause passed through the room. Not dramatic, just heavy with memory, while Simone stayed calm and attentive. Simone's calm was not indifference. It was respect for the fact that some history does not need to be performed. Brielle finished her notes, slid the folder closed, and thanked them for being active in Elijah's education. Her voice trembled slightly at the end, then steadied again. Darius nodded and said, "Thank you," in a flat tone that carried no insult and no invitation. Simone thanked Brielle as well, then gathered the papers. Brielle straightened her own stack of documents again, even though they were already neat. When Darius stood to leave, Brielle did not reach out or ask for a private moment. She simply nodded once, eyes dropping to the table. The meeting ended like a door closing softly. The moment passed slowly. When the meeting ended, Simone thanked Brielle. Darius said thank you without warmth or cruelty, and Brielle nodded while straightening papers already straight. Darius held the door for Simone and stepped into the hallway. He glanced back once and saw Brielle still looking down, focused on the table as if it were the safest place to put her eyes. She did not watch them walk away. She did not call his name. The absence of that was its own statement. Outside, the school continued as normal. Students moved through hallways. Voices echoed faintly. Darius and Simone walked toward the parking lot without rushing. Simone did not ask questions. She let the quiet exist. Darius felt something in his chest that was not pain exactly, and not relief either. It was the sensation of seeing consequences without needing to create them. It was closure arriving without a conversation. He kept breathing. As they left, Darius glanced back and saw Brielle looking down at the table, not watching them go, as if she had learned to live with absence. The image stayed with him as he walked. Brielle had once moved through their home with impatience, confident and fast. Now she looked careful, like every movement had to be measured. Darius did not take satisfaction from her tired expression. He only noted it as a fact. Simone opened the car door and sat down, still quiet. Darius sat beside her and stayed forward through the windshield for a moment. He did not speak right away. Simone placed her hand lightly on his and waited. That small touch was enough to ground him. It reminded him that his present was real, stable, and earned. He did not need Brielle's regret to validate his recovery. He had already rebuilt. He had already chosen peace. The moment passed slowly. The silence held. In the parking lot, Simone asked no questions, simply walked beside him, and that quiet made space for Darius to feel what he needed to feel. On the drive home, they spoke about Elijah's assignments and the next school event, then fell quiet again. At home, Elijah joked about the meeting, and Darius smiled without forcing it. Later, when the house settled, Darius found himself replaying Brielle's posture, the careful tone, and the way she never said his name. He realized he had never seen her after the day he left, never seen what her life became. Now he had seen a glimpse, and it did not pull him backward. It only closed a loop. He understood that walking away without revenge had shaped him into someone who could face the past without being owned by it. He did not need every answer. He only needed his peace to remain intact. He kept breathing. He kept his tone steady. He stored it away. If that school meeting gave you chills, you're not alone. If you want more real, emotional stories with consequences and closure, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next one is even heavier. And before you go, share this with someone who believes silence can be strength. At home, Darius kept seeing Brielle's tired eyes and remembered the night he chose silence, realizing closure sometimes arrives without a conversation. Simone sat with him on the couch after Elijah went to his room and spoke gently, not in speeches, just in plain sentences. She said, "You cared once, and that is why it feels strange. Caring does not disappear, but it does not control you anymore." Darius nodded because it was true. He felt the memory, but he also felt the life he had built. A wife who understood timing, a son who trusted him, and a home that did not require him to monitor shadows. Later, in bed, Darius stared at the ceiling briefly and accepted what the day had shown him. Brielle was part of his past, not a destination. His victory was his ability to move forward without losing himself. He kept breathing. He chose peace. The end.